Welcome back everybody to another Borderlands breaking news video. It's the 30th and the state of play for Borderlands 4 has just taken place and there is a lot to talk about. We are going to do these in a series of videos. There is going to be a lot of information, and what we're not going to do is just rush through every single piece of information in one video, because quite frankly they deserve their own time to breathe. So without further ado, before we get into this video today, make sure you're subbed to stay up to date on all Borderlands breaking news, and let's get right into it. Today we are going to be going over the Vault Hunters for Borderlands 4, and we are also going to talk a little bit about the skill trees in the game. And additionally, we're going to talk about the movement features too. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Firstly, the most important piece of news that we need to talk about is the Siren. It is not EMILY SWAN. That is right, the new Siren in Borderlands 4 is seemingly not EMILY SWAN, but there is a chance it might be. So let's jump into the character descriptions here, first with Vex, who is the named Siren. It reads, Vex had a rough upbringing that was made more complicated by receiving her Siren powers. Her cynical and sarcastic demeanor comes from having to fend for herself and scrape for everything she's got. But underneath her salty exterior, Vex is an empath who knows better than anyone how much life can suck. Ever the pessimist, Vex still believes in helping others, and if helping others means dealing damage to oppressive jerks, Vex will always be first in line. Now, let's start off with the elephant in the room, right? This is not EMILY SWAN, but what is interesting about Vex is that it does say that she had a rough upbringing that was complicated by how she received her Siren powers. Now, if you haven't checked out my video on EMILY SWAN, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. There is a chance this still could tie in, and maybe Vex is the name she went with. It is entirely possible that, for example, EMILY SWAN is her dead name. That's something she doesn't register with anymore. Someone did point out on Twitter that it is entirely possible that Vex having wings, which is now confirmed, is a sign of it being EMILY SWAN, because of course swans have wings and there are quite literal wings on the back of Vex. So that is very, very interesting. But more so interesting for Vex is that we got to look at her skill tree. So we know that Vex is going to use pets. This is going to be a big part of her playstyle, and we did get to see that she does have a pet. She also has an action skill where she can throw out an orb that does almost like an AoE damage to people. And I should also mention, while we're talking about the Vault Hunters, they did reveal that every Vault Hunter is going to have a passive which will apply to them, and they can swap it out on the fly. Also, if you take a look at this screenshot right here while we're looking at the skill tree for Vex, you can see that we are in just one tree, but look how many nodes there are for skills. This is, if I'm not wrong, I don't think I'm mistaken here, the largest skill tree we've seen in Borderlands, and this is just one of her trees. In Borderlands 3, we had 4 trees, but this is 3 trees in one tree, which is really, really crazy. That means there is going to be 9 possible capstones per character, which is kind of wild. But now let's move on to the next character, and this one is going to be Aemon. This is the big guy who had the axes. And his description reads, Aemon the Forge Knight. Aemon was raised in a vault monster worshipping cult until the vault was opened and the creature turned on everyone he loved. As the only survivor, he dedicates his life to finding and killing as many of these beasts as he can. Aemon, a warrior poet, is introspective and unflinching to his duty, but despite his hardened appearance, he has a warm attitude, often regaling comrades in arms with stories and advice earned throughout his travels. So this is of course the big guy who is throwing those axes out, and we did also get gameplay of him, or rather cinematic gameplay of him, with the new trailer, which shows that he has a shield that he charges forward with. So it's like a dash forward with this big front Roman shield almost, which is really, really nice. And I don't know if that's going to be very good in game, but we'll just have to find out. Next up, we are talking about Rafa, the Exo Soldier. It says that Rafael was born and raised in microgravity, which severely altered his bone density and musculature, making it impossible for him to survive elsewhere. Desperate to explore, he signed up to Tedior's military force in exchange for a tour of duty. His body was altered for a new kind of exosuit, but when it became clear Tedior never intended to end his service, he went AWOL. Now he's on the run, and he plans to enjoy whatever time he has left before the Tedior dead frame ends him for good. And I've got to say, I think this is the strongest backstory for these 4 Vault Hunters. I really think there is something truly exciting and interesting about this character, and I actually love the idea that one day he's just gonna die. I think that's a really compelling story. And yeah, I mean, his bone structure being altered as well. He's like it's like what happens if you're anti-vax, you know, you just slowly turn into puddled milk. So I think that's really cool. And yeah, I think he sounds beautiful. Now, finally, let's talk about the last Vault Hunter, and I think this one is really going to excite people. The last Vault Hunter is known as Harlow, the Gravitar. And get this, she's a member of the Traunt family. It says Harlow is a former Maliwan combat scientist, driven by the need to understand how things work. While this initially made her an outcast amongst her Traunt relatives, Harlow has been using her intellect to bring new tech and gadgetry to the battlefield as a Vault Hunter. Harlow's brilliance is apparent in everything she does, but so is her enthusiasm and love for life. She brings everything to the fight, including her sunny disposition, always ready to give a beatdown. Her spirit can't be beat. And while gameplay for all of the Vault Hunters has been pretty limited, aside from obviously Vex, because that was who they were playing in the reveal, it does seem apparent that Harlow has some form of phase grasp ability. Obviously not like a Siren does, but she can pick an enemy out of the air and slam them down, which I think is a really cool way of dealing with flying enemies, something which I think Borderlands has struggled with for so long now. So if she's got some kind of melee focus to her, I think they may have just unlocked a superpower for melee players. So that's a little bit about the Vault Hunters, and I want to end off the video here by talking about movement, because movement was expanded on in this gameplay, and there are some new features confirmed that previously were not. So first and foremost, one thing that they said briefly in one of the old interviews that we covered, but now we have a full confirmation, is gliding. Gliding is a brand new mechanic, and it's not just a, like, you know, you jump into the air and you slowly fall down and that's it. It actually has a resource meter now, so when you're gliding it is limited time. So there are jumps in the world, they actually opened with that in the gameplay. There are gaps that you will have to get across using gliding, and it does seem like gliding is going to be a big part of the gameplay. You're going to have to use it to get around and maybe use it in fights as well. Now what's interesting about this is that Vex has a pair of literal wings on her, like huge literal wings on her, which isn't new for Sirens, but it is interesting that there's a gliding mechanic, and Vex does have the ability, or rather not ability, but she's got wings which you would think would give her enhanced movement in the air, right? So I do wonder if that's going to just come in the form of air control, or maybe it's not going to come there at all. Now we also have a little more confirmation here on what's happening with dashing in Borderlands 4. We didn't really know before this if dashing was going to be a feature or if it would be a slow dodge. A lot of people didn't even see it in the initial trailer when we pointed it out, but they actually did go in depth on that today. So dashing is not the same as dodging. You can seemingly do both, which worries me for bindings because I don't know how that's going to work, but dashing is a quick jolt to the left or the right, for example. If you've played Wonderlands Redux, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It looks like a very quick traditional dash. The only exception between Redux and here is that you don't have to jump to do it. They were just passively doing it. And dodging is going to be your small minor adjustments in and out of combat. Now something which is also new, and granted the idea of this isn't new because you would typically do it on a ladder, it is new to Borderlands, that's wall climbing. I did mention on Twitter a while ago that it looked like there was some form of wall climbing, but we weren't sure. But they did show it off here. There are actually huge walls that you can just climb up, and I'm guessing there will be walls that will have grappling points on as well, meaning you will be able to just get around the world grappling onto stuff, wall climbing, jumping off, dashing into a glide. It looks like this is a really movement-focused Borderlands game, which is a good thing, by the way. I know a lot of people are going to be apprehensive about that, but as someone who's been in the Borderlands community for the longest time, I can tell you that people have wanted more movement, especially the speedrunners, so this is a good thing. We also saw gameplay of someone hopping out of their car on the fly, and it looks like it propels you out of the car, and I think that's just really sick, to be honest. Like, the potential here to move around the world really fast, especially when we're talking about a huge world like Kairos, I think that's interesting. And finally, on the subject of Kairos, I do want to bring it up that they didn't really go in depth on it being a seamless world. I think that's something that everybody was waiting for them to reveal on how that's going to work. Is there going to be hidden load zones? But we just didn't really see much of that, which is a little disappointing and makes me worried for what it actually is and how that's going to function. And a quick wrap up here just before we end off this video. Let's talk a little more about some minuscule details that maybe weren't noticed in the gameplay reveal. Some things that I noticed were you can now pick up barrels from range and throw them. Like, you can legitimately pull them towards you with your grappling hook and then throw them. I think that is unbelievably cool. And additionally, we have to end off by talking about rarity. Gearbox did not say that there would be a rarity above legendary at launch, and that is extremely disappointing. But that's for another video. Let's talk about the positive here, and that is that they mentioned they are listening to community feedback, and they know that in Borderlands 3 legendaries dropped far too often. So in Borderlands 4 they mentioned that they are going to make rarity feel special again, and getting a legendary is going to feel huge. And I think that is really comforting to hear, but I will say it does not make up for the erasure of extra rarities. They need to return at some point. They just do. That's my feedback. You won't change it. You might disagree with it, and that's totally fine. I think everyone's going to have varying opinions, and mine is that we need something above legendary at launch. At the very minimum, DLC 1, we need something. And I hope that they do make good on that. I really, really hope they do, because it would be a massive, massive improvement that we've wanted for so long. But my friends, with that being said, that's going to do it for this video. We are going to have more stuff coming out on Borderlands 4 soon, so make sure you are subscribed, and hey, help me out in the algorithm here. These videos, it's hard to get them all the way across the web without just farming negativity, so help me out by leaving a comment. Let me know what you thought was the best thing about the game, and also feel free to leave a thumbs up on the video if you really did enjoy it. It helps out more than you know. And if you're watching this video, I'm probably live on Twitch right now, EpicNNG. Come by and let's shoot the shit about what happened in the reveal. It's going to be a great time. But gamers, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Don't forget to subscribe for more breaking news, and we'll see you all in the next one.